All right. Thank you so much for joining us for this panel. As you can see, we've saved the best for last. We have a great panel over here to talk about a very relevant issue. As a consumer, I can tell you that I have close to about 5 shopping apps where, I have stuff lined up in the cart and I've just abandoned the app or the purchase. And I'm sure
you are part of the problem.
Sorry?
You are part of the problem.
Yes, I am part of the problem. And I'm trying to understand what I can do or what brands can do for me so that I don't carry on this trend, right? And I'm sure what I want to do with this panel, guys, is the last session. I'm sure this is a relevant issue for all of us here. I want to make this a little more interactive. Obviously, I'll do the first round of questioning, but please feel free to come in. There will be a lot of relevant questions that you may have that I don't have with me right now. So let's try and make this fun. And I want to start with Sumit, and talk about what causes this. Why or what are the causes for shoppers to abandon their shopping carts?
Well, first of all, thank you for having us, and thank you everybody for giving me an opportunity to be here. I think I have personally been scarred by this, right? So I got here a year and a half ago, and I remember I was a small kid. I was trying to order groceries. There's a local company here that does grocery aggregation, right? So you add everything, get to the cart, and I didn't have a registered login. So I created the login, and then everything vanished. And I had to start all over again. And meanwhile, my baby's looking at me completely confused, like, this man's useless. And my wife's nodding, saying, yeah, he is useless, right? So I've been personally scarred by this for a very long time. But what you realize in that entire process is that clarity and contextual analysis of what is happening at every stage is important, right? So like we discussed before, there's 3 parts almost to this. One is the design flow, right? If the design isn't accurate of how you land on a product page with all of that information and the content and rich enough to educate, how you get to checkout or the cart, and then actual features on the cart that are not distracting versus clear on what that process is. So whether it's credit card on file, your profile, shipping profiles, etc. And then moving to the insights piece, which I think everyone's going to talk about personalization at some point, and how you drive insights. I think the absence of one or a couple of these or all of them really drive the issue.
And Kartik, do you entirely agree with Sumit, or do you have your take on?
So I think I have a slightly different take on this. While we continue to call abandoned cart a challenge, I look at abandoned cart as an opportunity. And I would look at it mathematically. Out of 100 people who come to any website, typically anywhere between 30 to 40 of them bounce off for reasons known or unknown to all of us. It gives us very little time to identify. 2.5 people shop, which necessarily gives you 57 to 58 people who've abandoned your transaction at different stages in the journey, whether it's at the PDP, the PLP, the checkout. The challenge is that we only look at abandoned cart as a checkout phenomenon. While I would rather go back all the way to the PDP and the PLP and understand where did we as a business go wrong. It depends on what business are you in. If you are a venture-funded business and you are chasing GMVs, NMVs, and valuations, you wouldn't care too much about it. At the end of the day, you are driving the top line and you're driving valuations. But if you are a retailer like us, who necessarily is feeding the online business from the proceeds of the offline business, is going to be very, very ROI and ROAS driven, and goes into calculation that every 1% abandoned cart, if I'm able to convert as a low-hanging opportunity into my conversions, I'm able to save my ROS, or I'm able to up my ROS by 60 to 70 basis points. So mathematically, abandoned cart for me is not a challenge. Abandoned cart for me is an opportunity, because I've been able to cardinalize that customer at least. Instead of trying to have him in a virtual world and continue to look for new people, at least I have a cardinalized customer who I know exactly that I have 6 to 7 steps to take to make sure that the customer comes back into my business. If you look at across my businesses, let's say fashion business, abandoned cart for me might be a challenge, but in the adventure space business, where somebody is buying a 30,000 dirham kayak or a 50,000 dirham bike, I don't expect him to shop with me from the very first instance. If on an average, while a business like Noon or Amazon take around 2.5 sessions for a customer to convert, a business like Adventure HQ, which has a 30,000 kayak, would take anywhere between 14 to 23 sessions for a customer to convert. And hence, instead of trying to worry about an abandoned cart, I would create interceptors at various stages of the shopper journey to make sure that there is an assist, or a personal assist, a shopping assist, a virtual assist, or a DIY support available to him for him to build his transactions faster. The regular challenges of you left the worst for the last is what is bothering at the businesses more often than not. We believe that to make the shopping journey seamless, we load the checkout page with almost every possible information that we want to, instead of trying to give the shock to the customer throughout the journey. If we try and reinvigorate our product page, our PLP, our pre-checkout journey, our login challenges, or for that matter, even go back one step earlier and try and see where is the customer coming from. In an urgency to drive traffic onto the website, when we try and move away from a typical intent-based purchase to a volume-based, value-based purchase, we necessarily end up driving the wrong customer. He spends 3 to 5 minutes on the website, looks at a product, gets into a buyer's remorse, gets into a pricing issue, pricing challenges, and then he starts getting into an abandoned issue. So if we get our entire UX, the CX, which is typically the people, product, place, price, promotion, the typical conventional elements of a retail business right on the platform, then I'm sure abandoned cart would necessarily become a blessing in disguise for all of us.
And Russell, is a challenge or an opportunity for you?
Sure, it's an opportunity. Whenever a customer abandoned his cart and you do the right analysis, as the gentleman said previously, you will catch what's missing or what's wrong. What are you doing wrong to the customer? And then you will be able to rectify. However, you need to do the right analysis to spot what was attractive for the customer and he didn't find it, or what was wrong for the customer so he didn't complete the transaction. As they mentioned previously, the whole process should be smooth, streamlined, without any surprises in the middle. For example, a high shipping cost that he wouldn't expect it, or a registration that he don't want to do. A guest checkout would solve this problem. So too many aspects might lead to an abandoned cart, and you need to dig deep to understand what to do and how to resolve it, to convert it to an opportunity instead of a problem.
Ahmed, we've heard the causes, right? We want to try and understand from you, what are the measures that brands can take, to reduce or to strategize the reduction of cart abandonment?
Of course. First of all, thank you, Sanjay, for having me, and thank you for the great participants and wonderful panelists. I'm a fan and I'm a customer, Virgin, and Sharaf DG. So maybe before talking about the strategies of how to address this, maybe we would like to quantify the issue or the challenge. There's an institute called Baymard Institute, and what they do, they don't take only one statistics, but they study many statistics about the abandonment rate. And they studied 48 statistics, and they came with the figures. Almost 69.9%, 70% is the average abandonment rate on digital channels. If you go to mobile, it is even more, over 85%. And this is a challenge that is facing all the businesses. And by the way, it is not only an e-commerce challenge, because the conversion rate, every business is a digital business, whether it's governments, banking, it's B2B, it's retail, and every business needs to increase its conversion rate. So I would say the first strategy is to understand why this is happening. And to understand why, you need to understand what's going on your digital channel. And this is exactly what we were told. So at ContentSquare, we are honored to be working with about over 1 million digital presence, website and mobile app. And also, we are fortunate to be working with 1/3 of the Fortune 100 brands. The discussion we had was with the CMO of one of those top brands before being in business together. And we asked a very straight question: why are you talking to us? And the answer is, I have no clue what's happening on my website. Of course, he has a lot of clue, and one of the top brands of the world. But the thing is, the amount of information we know about what's happening on the digital channels is less than the opportunity. And as you mentioned, this is the opportunity. The abandonment rate is giving us an alarm that if we know more, we'll be able to address. So I would say the first strategy is to understand and know more. Second strategy is to analyze what's going on your digital channel. And I would say third strategy is to be able to take real-time insights and action them. And what does that mean? We all work on, this is how we operate as human beings. We all work on occasions and on campaigns. And if you look at the top digital retailers and top digital websites, they always campaign. Even this beautiful city where we are living in. You know, there's a campaign for fitness, campaign for marathons, campaign for Green Dubai. And every business has a campaign. So without being able, during the campaign, imagine, you know, there's a campaign for Black Friday, the campaign for Ramadan, the campaign for Eid, the campaign for the New Year Eve. And when you know what's going on the website, when you analyze, if you're not able to take real-time insights and action them immediately, you lose this campaign. And then you wait for next year. So this information that you managed to gather, this intelligence is going to be only useful for the next campaign, and things change. So the ability to make use of it is going to be not much. Another strategy I would say is speed. Speed in actioning, and also speed in the very basic meaning of speed, which is the speed of the website, the speed of the mobile app. Another thing is make it simple. Many times the shopping cart have a lot of information and a lot of details needed from the customer that are really not needed to make the transaction. Many times we see that and this is a very big cause of abandoning the shopping cart, is that it's asking you to register to become a member before you do the transaction, the sale. This is not needed, and this is a major reason of increased abandonment rates. One other thing is organizing your website and organizing the shopping cart on mobile app. There are very simple techniques, you know, like accordions, just clicking on a drop-down menu in the shopping cart if needed to get to this and if needed to provide the information. Make all the relevant and needed info above the fold. Simplicity is key, and I will end up with also another strategy. We heard it yesterday in from one of the presenters, and it's a figure about 25%. And the figure, he mentioned this when he was talking about Shopify, and what those guys are trying to do is very simple. In part of their digital presence, they want you to subscribe. So if you are in a freemium mode or you are going first time, they want you to subscribe. And the subscription page is very simple on their website. But even simple and there's not much pages, you need to do a hell of experimentation. So I would say daring to experiment is key. And the figure is that only 25% of the experimentations count. So in simple, understanding what's going on, analyzing, taking real-time insights, making them actionable, make it simple, speed is key, and organizing things, and being there to experiment. And all of these strategies will not work without culture. You know, as I say, culture eats strategy for lunch. So without the will and the culture to make it happen, it will be challenging.
Right, and I think one of the things that you mentioned over there was personalization, you know, and that's the next thing that I want to talk about. But I know that's a conversation that can go on all day with no limits. But what I want to do is, you know, quickly, just from each one of you, try and understand what are, maybe in a minute or under a minute, what strategies can you suggest to improve the overall personalization? I mean, let's start with you, Sumit.
I think it's context and relevance, right, at the end of the day. So a lot of usage pattern analysis of how someone's using the website, what they're buying, where they bounce off of. So like page delays, loads. You can look at heat maps of what they're browsing, how many times you've added someone to a watch list, favorites, a saved list, how many times have you gone back, actually bought it after that. So there's a lot that goes into that. But from a personalization aspect, it's purely usage. And that's phase one. But once you analyze that and you do a lot of tests, right, to throw someone another offer or an incentive or another cross-category sell, the minute they click to that, they go into a different funnel and then a different one. If they didn't engage, they move to a different funnel. That's phase two that leads to personalization truly, which is predictive analytics. So before you tell me what you're going to buy, I can look at your entire pattern over years of data and tell you that if I pitch to you a cross-category item or a different merchandise, there's a 90% confidence chance that you will buy it. And that's when you truly get to personalization.
Kartik, what's your opinion on this?
It's a very broad spectrum discussion. At one end of the spectrum is, let's say, emotional intuitive technology that a lot of businesses use to hyper-personalize the businesses, to another extent where we see somebody like a Stitch Fix working on an entire personalization algorithm. But to be a little bit more realistic, if we were to take a step back and see, Are we as a business able to build a learning relationship with the customer, especially from the time that he is a traffic, a node, which is either a first party or a third party data on my platform, to the time he becomes a real customer? Am I able to do that? And to do that, what we typically work on, and which we at both Forever 21 as well as one of our other businesses are trying to do, is to build in a convergence. Convergence 2.0 is typically about building a right synergy depending on the audience type, depending on the customer profile, depending on the demographics, and the historical collaborative filtering learning, is to see how do we build seamlessness between product, customer, service, ecosystem or experience, and the community, and create a right mix, because customers today have no longer started establishing or engaging with a platform for nearly a product. His reason to engage with you has started varying all the way from just buying a product at a lower cost to move into an experiential, into a community, into a social first ecosystem. And hence, as a business, if we are able to personalize that experience through a right mix of A and B testing, through a right mix of first response testing, or through a stimuli which allows or measures calibrated measuring of the customer stimuli, which is what Facebook's 7-layer algorithm of sequential staggering of responses does. So if we are able to personalize his engagement on the platform through certain level, then we are in a position to build. One of the OTT platforms is going to a level of content creation and personalization to a level where if I'm watching an OTT, a movie on an OTT platform, and if I like a particular jacket that Tom Cruise is wearing, I can just pause and buy. Now that for me is an extreme end of hyper-personalization being built on a content platform. So as a business, I wouldn't say we have reached a level where we want to be, but convergence is what we are following to try and make sure that every experience that a customer receives on our platform is personalized as per his expectation.
Right. And Russell, how do you think technology can help brands in this pursuit?
Well, I believe what is done now in terms of personalization, that each brand is taking its data part and then analyzing that to create a personalized experience for its customer. However, let's take an example. For example, for a very used scenario, which is the suggested product. So every brand is suggesting for its customer that based on your previous purchases, we suggest you would be interested with this product. However, we don't know, or the brands doesn't know what this particular customer have purchased from other brands, let's say. So what I do believe to go into a real personalization or in a real personalized experience moving forward, I believe there should be a big data pool where all the brands can read from it. And then the race would be with the better offers we are going to give to the customers and win them to do business with you. Yeah, I believe it's not next year plan, but it's coming soon. I'm 100% sure it's coming.
Sumit, you have a take on that?
I think something to what he's referring to is like blockchain, right? So when you look at luxury platforms, this is sort of already done. When you look at Richemont, Alibaba, LVMH, they've built out Aura Consortium, which is basically, it's a full blockchain of all of those brands and who's purchased what, where it was made, etc. Right? So I think that is one way of doing it. The problem you'll have in certain regions is that you're not able to share data, right? So especially in regions where you have a distribution model, so this region being one of them, where you have a distribution model and you've basically bought into rights of distribution for multiple brands, those brands may not actually be housed under one umbrella from a manufacturing perspective, and therefore you can't share that data. So that is an issue, but I kind of feel like from a personalization aspect, there's a ton of tools. You could also build a lot of this in-house. So many parties, and some of our teams have done it as well, is you literally build in a streaming engine with real-time data flows, and then you have a CDP, which is like first-party data, and you have third-party content driven on top of that, and a campaign on top of that, and you have orchestration models that define real-time based on usage, what is the event, and what's the trigger, right? So I don't want to get into boring details, but I think it can be built in-house, but there's a ton of streaming platforms that do this for you as well.
Right. And Ahmad, I want to bring you in here because I'm sure you speak to a lot of brands and you solve a lot of these issues of how to convert or increase conversion rates. What's your take on this?
I would say that without data, it's only another opinion, right? And luckily, there are technologies today that I would say every business, it's a digital business, and every digital business need them. I start with fundamental analytics. These are technologies that are known in the market as web analytics. Example, Google Analytics, Adobe Analytics. These are core or fundamental analytics that every business needs. And if we talk about the checkout conversion funnel, just imagine e-commerce website. So you go to the shopping cart, and everyone that managed to go to the end, he goes. And this is the top part of the funnel. Then you're asked, say, about shipping address, and then 48% of people don't continue, they leave, right? Shipping address information, payment methods, and then the payment itself, the transaction. And this is, give or take, this is how the funnel looks like. And of course, very minimal number at the end, then conclude the transaction. So those core analytics technologies, they will let you know where you are losing customer. And this is very important information. For sure, they let you know a lot of other things, but the core thing when we talk about shopping cart abandonment, they tell you where you're losing customer. And this is very important. What they don't tell you is why you are losing customers, and how you can avoid that, what actions you need to take, and what are the priority of those actions in terms of your definition of conversion. Because if you are a bank, you're not selling something online. If you are a government entity, you want people to subscribe to a certain campaign. If you are a B2B business, you want them to fill a form. So according to your target, there are technologies that can tell you what you need to do and prioritizing this. And what we need to always remember is that people, when they are on our digital touch points, they are giving you, as a business provider, tremendous insights about how they feel and about their intention. And they give you a lot of means to create empathy with them. Just with the right analytics, which is next level analytics technology, digital experience analytics, you will be able to know more and you'll be able to connect more with them.
Right. Do you have any questions from the audience? Any questions for our panelists here? Yes. Getting you the mic once. You can take this one. I'll come to you.
Yeah, I'll ask about same topic that you asked, Sanjay, so about personalization. So all we know, like, okay, how we can personalize existing user based on his behavior and the content so that he consumed or the product. But our challenge here is how we can personalize a new user. In addition to, okay, I can do like onboarding journey questions, but user can skip this, right? So how we can work on this strategy about a new user, personalize your product to get him more engaged. Thank you. Yeah.
So there are quite a few solutions available for this. And if you look at how Netflix or Amazon, both of them in their own ways, work on the recommender engine, which is primarily a personalization engine that works on two broad principles, the collaborative filtering and the content filtering. Content filtering is a lookalike, more or less similar to a lookalike. Collaborative filtering is more or less how a similar shopper in a similar environment with a similar stimuli would have behaved, and hence is able to build in prediction. Depending on what business are you in and what is the nature or the dynamics of your business, you can use from anywhere between 18 to around 6,000 different variables to create segments of customers and have personalizations, which in simple term translates into shopper persona. So once you have identified between 9 to 14 different shopper persona that what Noon and Amazon use in this part of the world, one would be able to identify and create journeys accordingly. And then it's an iterative process. It has to be powered by a very strong AI engine so that the flanks can be cut off and the mainstream persona can be sharpened as we move.
Yeah, I'd second that. So we actually have built models, which are cohorts essentially, with say a Google or a Facebook, right? They will build you a like audience based on profile attributes, like you mentioned, that you would basically have to share with them. And then if those profile attributes match as per third-party data that a Google or a Facebook would have, Adobe, Amazon, all of them have it, or credit card partners have them, that profile then gets matched into a cohort, and that is then funneled to you. The challenge we're going to have in this cookie-less world that's coming up The challenge you're going to have is that you cannot personalize down to a person like me or Kartik or Russell or anybody. It'll have to be at cohorts. So a cohort could be this panel sitting here, right? A cohort could be people that have a certain spend, wear a certain level of clothes, here's the way they travel, here's how much they spend, right? So it could be demographic based, it could be use based, it could be need based, but that's how you're going to get at it eventually. And then I think the goal is when these new customers come on, you know nothing about them, except that they exhibit the same or similar attributes to your current profiles. That is when you have to get them into a new user funnel, per se, and build that into your use cases.
I think we have another question here.
Thank you to all the panelists for their wonderful insights. Cart abandonment is one of the most, important challenges that consumer tech industry faces, right? So, how do we solve cart abandonment for guest checkout users? For the customers who are landing on your app or website for the very first time, and there are not enough events or browsing behavior to help us, segment those audiences or put them into certain cohorts that that they behave in a certain way. How do we solve for a customer who's newly acquired through a paid marketing channel or who've just directly opened the app for the first time? How do we bring in certain experiments or initiatives to improve the conversion or improve the cart abandonment?
So there's a couple of ways, right? And you have to test this out. You have to constantly test this and keep refining it. A couple of ways that have worked for us in the past. One is the most simplistic version, right? Where someone comes on in guest checkout, instead of that, also offer social sign-on. So if you are partnering with other digital marketing, say agencies, some vendors were here at this event as well, but if you are partnering with a Google or a Facebook or an Adobe or somebody else directly, you actually have the social sign-on as an event trigger, right? So it's an action and an event that happened under a certain user profile. And so that can be built into a new user cohort. That's one. The second version that we've done is, and this is for massive marketplaces, right? Like from my previous life at eBay, Amazon, DoorDash, etc. What's really worked is a dynamic incentive model. And what that basically means is for every life cycle and every stage of the customer, you have a funnel, right? So if I'm a prospect, which is essentially what you're talking about, where I'm discovering, I'm not considering yet or converting yet. I'm still in the prospect phase, right? I'm discovering. So there is a discovery funnel. And if someone comes in and whether you do desk checkout or you have an app download, you incentivize with the app download, right? And then the app download, you have to give them a promo or an offer or a value-added service. It doesn't always have to be money back. It can be a value-added service, right? And then you have to literally actively manage to say, okay, they've done this act, therefore they go into a different funnel, right? And that you have to do over and over again to basically get a cohort around that to build. And then once you have enough data that says, okay, this works 30% of the time, but it doesn't actually work 70% of the time, then you've got to do another test, right? And this is how you'll bring people into different funnels. One of the other things that we've actually seen is through this dynamic incentive model is, and it actually really helps with the bounce rate as well, it's a double-edged sword, right? Everybody at checkout suddenly starts showing you recommendations or coupons, right? It's a double-edged sword because I'm at the checkout page, now you're showing me something else, and marketplaces are infamous for doing this. At checkout now, I've gone to another product, right? And marketplaces have multiple sellers, multiple brands. So I was almost about to check out for one brand. As a marketplace now, you've shown me another brand, similar product. I've moved to another product page, maybe I'm gonna buy that now. As a marketplace, you don't care. But your brand, which is your client or your vendor, so on an Amazon or Noon or an eBay, this is a massive issue. So when you look at it from a retailer's perspective as well, you don't often want to, or you can test this, maybe it works for your brand, but you shouldn't be having too many friction points at checkout. From a coupon perspective, same thing. People will go start searching for a coupon. There's many web browsers that'll basically save on coupons. The incentive model that you need to build has to be dynamic enough to say, I've had a user or certain users get to checkout cart, and then they're basically abandoned. Should I show them a promo at this stage? But it's carefully tested because what if I already got to checkout and I was about to convert full price, now you're giving me a promo on that. So this is where you've constantly got to test and put them into different funnels because someone who came with an incentive once, then shopped you again on a second incentive and then on a third incentive, they're value seekers, they're not relationship builders. So you have to then understand how you take them through the low ticket funnel to a higher ticket funnel to actually build a relationship, or they're not a value customer for you at all, because this is someone that will constantly open up 5 web pages and they will cross shop and they will leave. If you look at checkout abandonment, right? Pre-pandemic, about 30% of your traffic converted, 70% didn't. Post-pandemic, and there are many reports on this with different sort of data, but market global average is now it's 80% bounce and 20% actually end up converting. But this is because now, through the pandemic, you've had 50 websites pop up, all selling similar stuff. And now people open up 5 pages and they can actually compare who's getting me the best discount, right? Flights have suffered massively. Hotels have suffered massively. Commodities like cell phones, electronics, and stuff have suffered like massively because of this, right? So it's all about testing, and I think this is something that I've been here only a year and a half, right? I don't see people doing too many tests in this region as compared to North America.
So another take on this is, if you were a typical retailer, look at the element of margin of error that you have in the business. On the platform, you are able to track the customer to a third party or a first party data source, whichever you choose to use. But in the typical retail environment, when the customer goes out of my store, it's an abandoned cart for me. I don't have an option of chasing him or calling him back or sending him a CTA and getting him to shop with me. And hence, for years and years and years, businesses have built fail-safe levels to ensure that the conversions are optimized on the platform. It's the rhetorical way of looking at it. Instead of trying to catch hold of a customer after he has abandoned, whether he's abandoned as a guest or he's abandoned as a signed up customer, I should rather be building in face-safe measures from a typical product, platform, place, price, and experience point of view, so as to make sure that my conversions are optimized, my typical friction points or elements that lead to abandons are reduced.
Perfect. I think we're pressed for time. Thank you so much for making this an engaging session. I told you that we'll save the best for last, and we did. But thank you so much for being such an engaging audience. Thank you so much, panelists, for taking the time out and being with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.